Hey everybody, it's day 30 of my AMA fundraiser for the Norwegian Refugee Council, and guess what? We just breached my goal of $5,000 thanks to my colleague Scott Simpson, which means, well, I reached my goal, which is awesome, which also means we're giving together $5,000 to the Norwegian Refugee Council so they can help refugees and displaced people all over the world. And I'm truly grateful for every one of you for partaking in this endeavor or whatever you want to call it. It's been an interesting experience to run a fundraiser, and I'm really happy we're able to give all this money to an organization that will do great work with it. All right, so this is the last of my videos, AMA videos, where I'll actually answer a question. Tomorrow I'll make a totally different kind of video. It won't be anything spectacular, it'll just be different. And it's only fitting that the last question I get for this AMA series is an extremely nerdy one. So it comes from Amer, and it is, what do you think about PWAs and how do you find support for it in WordPress? So if you're not familiar with it, a PWA is short for Progressive Web App, and it's the new hot thing in web design. And I think it's going to stick around. It's a reasonable approach to a very common problem we have. So let me just explain this briefly. A PWA is a website that has some additional files and functionality in it that allow the website to act like an actual installed application on whatever device you use to access it. So on your computer, or more commonly on a mobile device, you'll be able to install the website onto the device, and then the website will place a couple of important files onto the device and then pull data in as you go visit different pages. Now, there are many reasons to do this. One is that you actually create a unified display across all devices, so you don't need to create native apps for each device. You actually just ship a website, make it into a PWA by adding these extra files, and then it'll behave like an app on all these devices. Just as importantly, one of the criteria of a PWA is you'll be able to push data onto the device so that it gets stored there. So if the internet connection goes away, the user can still get access to that data. So it doesn't just live in the browser, it actually lives on the device. And this is really important because you can imagine many circumstances where you may serve up an app, a web app, that has a bunch of information and you don't really know what's going to happen to the user. It could be something like the user then travels to a country where they don't have a data plan, or they are in an area where the data plan is very basic, or maybe drop in and out all the time. And using a PWA, you can then push data onto the device so they're able to use the app even when the data goes away. And this is a very different way of thinking about the web, because the web, generally speaking, only works if you have internet access. So I think PWAs are going to stick around. They're going to get more common, and a lot of more people are going to use it. And I think that PWAs in many ways are the answer to that promise we had of HTML5s. Remember, in HTML5, it was like everyone was talking about how you're not going to have native apps anymore. You're going to have HTML5 apps, and then a bunch of companies, including Facebook and many others, tried that, and it was not great. So they went back to native apps. I think PWAs will finally be able to bring us to that point where you build a web app and you ship it to all devices, and you don't have to make 100 different apps for 100 different devices. Now, the reason why I think PWAs are going to stick around has to do with WordPress, which is kind of weird. So WordPress now controls 32% of the web, or 32% of the 10 million most visited sites on the web, which is essentially the same thing. And there's work being done right now in WordPress on adding service workers to WordPress. Now, that doesn't sound like it has anything to do with PWAs, but it does actually have everything to do with PWAs, because on a website, you can only have one service worker running. Currently, you can install some PWA plugins to WordPress, but then they introduce a service worker, meaning once you have that plugin installed, you can't use service workers for anything else. The plan that exists in WordPress core now is to install a service worker globally for WordPress in WordPress core that then has an API. Shh, stupid phone. Let me just mute this. So we install or we enable a service worker in WordPress core that has an API so developers can plug into it and do things like build PWAs. That will result in us being able to maybe make WordPress core into a PWA. maybe make WordPress ship PWAs on the front end by default, or maybe have plugins that either add PWA features to WordPress or even themes that add PWA features to WordPress. In my opinion, I think a PWA should live in core. Fallback, it should be a theme feature. So when you install the theme, if this theme is designed to be a PWA, then that feature automatically comes with it. So the user, the person who owns the site, doesn't actually need to know what a PWA is. They just install the theme and activate it, and then all of a sudden they have a progressive web app out of their site, which would be awesome. Now, the reason why I'm saying that's what's going to carry PWA into the mainstream is if we do this right in WordPress and we actually ship it in many themes or many plugins or whatever, or even make it a core feature, then 32% of the web will suddenly be PWA, which means that will basically establish it as a standard. And that's honestly what I hope will happen, because we can use WordPress to drive the web forward. And one of the ways of doing that is by introducing PWAs everywhere. We'll see what happens, but that's what I think might happen in the not too distant future. There's already a lot of work being done on the service worker plugin or feature plugin. There's already a lot of work being done by XWP and others on PWAs in WordPress. So I think we'll see something of this either late this year or early next year. So this is right around the bend. It'll be really exciting. All right, that was the last of these AMA videos, meaning, I mean, you can still ask me questions, but I won't answer them in this video series. I might answer them in a video format or somewhere else, but I won't continue this particular video series because I need a break from this and need to focus on some work. But thank you all for watching the series. I hope I answered some interesting questions and gave you something to think about. And maybe I'll do this again some other time. Who knows? Tune back in tomorrow for another video, which will be different. And yeah, I will see you.